Thank you so much for joining us all here tonight. We had way over 700 registrations, over 50 nationalities. We probably expected over 500 people here, several tens of thousands of people watching it online. And I'm sure they would love to learn more about you and your thinking. Because you have been in the fight for liberty for many, many years, but also you have been producing incredible amounts of value through your businesses. But one thing that I'm curious about is that the left often depicts capitalism as a system just focused on money, that depletes the world's resources and its people. But you don't agree with this, obviously. But can you tell us a little bit more about what you believe is the ethos of capitalism?
Yeah, of course, the enemies of capitalism want to portray it as it's all about money, it's all about greed, it's all about, it's a machine for creating inequality, and it's evil. And of course, none of that's true. I mean, capitalism is basically about people creating value for other people and then trading with them. Capitalism is the great economic engine that in the last 200 years has lifted billions of people out of poverty. I mean, if you go back just 200 years ago, 85% of everyone alive on the planet lived on less than $1 a day in today's dollars. And 94% lived on less than $2 a day. And it's been capitalism, the value creation, when we unleashed it, when we had the Industrial Revolution, the great enrichment, as Deirdre McCloskey called it, began to occur. Frankly, capitalism is the greatest thing humanity's ever done.
Beautifully put. And so a question for a predominantly student audience. You became a libertarian in your early 20s. Tell us a little bit about how you found these ideas and also maybe how the ideas of liberty have helped you as an entrepreneur.
Yeah, well, when I was going to university, I didn't take any business classes. I didn't really take any economics classes. I just took classes I was interested in, primarily philosophy, the humanities, psychology, world literature, things like that. And like most people, I was brainwashed into, I would identify as a democratic socialist when I was like 21 years old. But once I started the business, I found that a lot of my friends were treating me like, you're in business? And I was being shunned by the cool people and told that I'd kind of gone over to the dark side. In fact, I'd been involved in the co-op movement in Austin, and I got a nickname of Darth Vader. And I'd gone over to the dark side. And here I was struggling in business, a small business we raised $45,000 in capital and we lost half of it in the first year. And my girlfriend and I were living in the store on the third floor, and we were making $200 a month each. And we were struggling to pay the bills. So I didn't feel like I was evil. I felt like business was pretty hard. And so I began to look around for a different philosophy. And fortunately for me, I had a couple of libertarians working for Safer Way, first store. And they gave me some books to read. And I think Milton Friedman was the one that, Capitalism and Freedom was the first sort of awakening to these ideas. And then I just become insatiable. I read just about every book, laissez-faire books ever came out with in the late 70s and early 80s. And then I realized, this makes sense. This is really the way the world works. I was like the scales fell from my eyes. And yeah, I was instinctively always believed in liberty, but I didn't have a philosophy that made sense to me, and this one did, and I've been, I'm different today than I was when I was 25 years old, but in general, I'm still as passionate or more passionate about liberty and capitalism than I was then, because I've seen how much good it's done in the world and how much good it can do in the future if we'll allow it.
And where did you find the resilience? You were staying on the third floor. Were you staying in the store because you were saving on money as well from time to time? Only living of like $200, that must have been hard. And people were attacking you. I
was 25 years old. I was young. I was healthy. I was vital. I was in love. I had purpose. I had meaning. I didn't need any money. You needed very little money. What did I need it for? I had everything I needed. I had a store downstairs if I wanted to get something to eat. So, I mean, I look back on that now and it's kind of romantic because we weren't supposed to be living in the store. That was not zoned for, and we didn't have a shower. In fact, Renee and I used to take showers in the Hobart dishwasher, which I'm pretty sure violated health code protocols.
For the non-economists here, this is called low time preference. That's very remarkable. And tell us, you have been an advocate for conscious capitalism for a long time. Can you define that for us? And how also do you delineate conscious capitalism for something that's like much more popular out there, like the ESG movement, the environment, social, and governance movement?
You know, it's funny. I do get asked that question a lot, and a lot of times when I explain what conscious capitalism is, that businesses has a higher purpose that can include making profits, but is not limited to that, and it has something to do with the value creation the business is doing. And I talk about it, that all the constituencies in a business matter. The customers matter, the employees matter, the suppliers matter, the investors matter, the communities that we're part of matter. You talk about leadership, and you talk about culture, and I finish it, and somebody says, well, that's just capitalism. Exactly. It's just capitalism, but done in a more conscious way. And when I try to explain to people about higher purpose, when I talk about stakeholders, not the way stakeholders have been co-opted by the left, but in terms of what Ed Freeman meant when he wrote about stakeholders, just that there are a variety of constituencies in a business, and they all matter, and they're somewhat all interdependent on each other. And a conscious leader is one who's going to take into account their interest and try to optimize the entire system up to a higher level because they are interdependent. So conscious capitalism is ultimately, and this is where I part company in the ESG movement and where I part company with what's happened to stakeholder theory. As I say, it's been co-opted. Is that it's a management philosophy. It's just a good way to manage your business. You'll end up optimizing the business at a higher level when you lead with purpose and you lead with care for all the stakeholders. It's just so obvious to me. And I think many businesses do that unconsciously. So we're just trying to convince people this is a good management philosophy. What it is not a governance system. And this is what's happened, is they're trying to take, the anti-capitalists are trying to take stakeholder theory and use it and weaponize it. To say, well, every stakeholders have to have representation on the board. And so they're trying to take power, these people are obsessed with power, and they're trying to take power away from the investors and give it to random people who are on the board who represent some stakeholder group. If you do that, you'll kill capitalism. And that's exactly what they're trying to do, is kill capitalism, and that's why I said they've weaponized stakeholder theory. It's not a governance theory, it's a management philosophy that will create value for, and ultimately the most value for shareholders over the long term. So I've ended up having to I still am very supportive of conscious capitalism, but I'm constantly defending it because it's now being misconstrued and misinterpreted, in my opinion, misused.
Unfortunately, concepts often are, and we have to fight back and define them well.
Well, when you have a good concept, there's always somebody who wants to take it over and make it their own and reinterpret it for their own, for whatever reasons. And the left's so obsessed with power that anything they can use to gain more power, they will try to weaponize.
So that brings me to the next question, which is like, how do you feel about the future? Because on the one hand, you said recently in a few interviews that you feel that the left and socialists are taking over. But on the other hand, I know that you are an optimist. You know about the innovative power of capitalism and the human spirit. How do you reconcile these two views, and what do you see like in the immediate future?
Well, I don't know what the heck to see in the immediate future, because we could have a nuclear exchange here the way people are talking. So, I mean, the immediate future is always uncertain. But I'm optimistic about the long term. I'm optimistic because human creativity is limitless. And it's not to say that we have it. Progress is not a straight line. Progress is more of a spiral where you move up and then you may circle back. But the overall thread, I'm still very optimistic about the long term, but there could be setbacks. I mean, the whole lockdown was the biggest government blunder of my lifetime, and that has been by itself a setback. And supply chains have been disrupted. The work ethic's been eroded. It's been literally hundreds of millions of people slipped back into poverty that has escaped it. It was very stupid to do and very foolish, and I argued against it from the very beginning because it was such a violation of human liberty. It was ridiculous. You needed to protect the old and vulnerable people and let the young and vital people go about life. It was so obvious to me, and now in retrospect, it's just increasingly obvious how stupid we behaved. Yeah, I may be rambling a little bit. Refocus me.
No, that's excellent. I think we are beyond that, luckily, and it's in the background, but it was really awful, and it's still happening in China everywhere. They're locking still people up, and the COVID zero policy is completely senseless, and that's how they have controlled a lot of people and really harmed more people than it did good at the end of the day.
It's a good strategy for control. Make people scared, and they'll be more willing to give up their power to you, and then you can tell them what to do.
Well said. Now, you recently stepped down from Whole Foods, but you also have another business cooking up. We talk more about that a little bit later. But Whole Foods is frequented by all kinds of different people, millions of customers, but a lot of people also like from the left, and people that would typically disagree with your ideas. And I know that you also have been going against Obamacare when that came out and so forth. How did you manage to run a business as a libertarian, but also deal with the political realities, and how did you maneuver that? That sounds incredibly difficult.
It was pretty difficult, but the reality is back in 2009 when I wrote that op-ed piece in the Wall Street Journal, that created a massive controversy. And we had, 350,000 people signed a petition on Facebook to boycott Whole Foods. And we got all these people were picketing our stores and
stealing stuff from your stores.
Oh yeah, thousands and thousands and thousands of people wrote letters and emails to our board of directors demanding that I be fired. This was before we had the phrase cancel culture, but they were trying really hard to cancel me. And it didn't succeed, but they did succeed in sort of muzzling me. I have not done, the board asked me not to write any more op-ed pieces. And in general, I just was less outspoken about politics. So, not that I'm about to go on a crusade on speaking of politics, but I don't feel inhibited any longer from being able to talk about things a bit more honestly about what I believe. And they can yell at Whole Foods, but Whole Foods, I'm not working for them anymore. It's somebody else's responsibility.
Wonderful. So that's a really interesting insight, because the general population probably thinks like businessmen have so much money, they can do whatever they want, screw you money. But in reality, if you are going too far off, you're getting canceled. No, people steal from your store.
Well, no, it was more like I'm the father of Whole Foods and they were threatening my child. So I was effectively silenced for fear they were going to hurt my child. But now the child's grown up, the child isn't my child anymore, I can't affect it. So they can't. So they can still threaten Whole Foods, but Whole Foods has no ability to shut me up. It's a little bit like Bernie Marcus at Home Depot. He did this too. Bernie's been outspoken for a lot of job creators and pro-growth strategies and things like that, and they've tried to cancel Bernie, but he retired from Home Depot over 20 years ago. So Home Depot just says, Bernie doesn't work here anymore. He left 20 years ago. Take it up with him. And Whole Foods will probably have to do the same thing with me.
Very good, yeah. And Bernie Marcus has given a lot to the freedom movement and has helped so many people, also like veterans, and he invests in so many different things as you do, and really grateful for this, because it's remarkable, because you continue in your life fighting for these ideas, but you're getting attacked. You don't get much out of it besides like your own personal satisfaction, and you know that you stand up for your values. That's a very difficult thing to do. And it's not too surprising that we don't see like as many business leaders stand up for these ideas. But do you have any hope that we will see more of that in the future, because we see
in general, I don't think business people ought to be speaking up all the time about politics, because one way or another, their job is an economic mission to produce value for people and goods, products, services, things like that. That's what they're about. Putting your own personal politics out there is going to anger a lot of people one way or another. And of course, I was just writing an opinion piece in the Wall Street Journal. I have no idea why it became so controversial. I mean, I just stood behind the freedom of speech. My opinion, you offer your opinion, and there you go. That's the way it is in America. We're supposed to be founded on the right to free speech. And but in general, I just don't think business people ought to be getting involved in politics. They should get involved in politics, but they should not do things that will harm their business, basically, because that business has a larger representatives of shareholders and team members and employees, and that was one of the lessons I learned from that whole Wall Street Journal fiasco, in a way, was, my gosh, I can't just express my opinion, because people so closely identify me with Whole Foods Market, they don't see any difference. I saw a difference. Whole Foods, I wasn't speaking for Whole Foods, I was speaking for me. But the world didn't see it that way. And that's true for most CEOs will not be seen as separate from their organization. They'll always be seen as speaking for the organization. And because of that, I do think that does and should act a bit as a constraint on what people do and say. They do have a responsibility to all of their investors, to all their customers, their employees, and so they do have awesome responsibilities. It shouldn't be cavalier about it. And that goes for all these people at corporate, not just talking about liberty ideas, but when they're pushing woke ideologies and whatnot, they risk alienating their customers too. They just should stay out of it. That's what I think, for the most part. Do things personally, give money, but if you're going to become a political public figure, you have to be recognized that you could be really, really harming your business.
Some people might think that after such a fantastic career that you had, and building a store from scratch that didn't exist before and was really innovative within the grocery store market, people would say, like, okay, maybe you want to retire now, but that's not you. You have plans to start a new business. It's called Love Life. Can you tell us a little bit more about this, and also how does this business align with your own personal purpose and ethos?
Yeah, I can talk about Love Life a little bit, Wolf, but I'm not going to give up the whole strategy of it or anything like that, because competitors and the media is eager for it, et cetera, et cetera. But it kind of lines up with my own personal higher purpose in life, which is trying to help heal people. Whole Foods, trying to sell healthy food to people, so nourish them. Whole Foods' higher purpose was to nourish people on the planet and do that through healthy eating. And Love Life is continuing that mission in a way. My longtime co-CEO, Walter Ropp, who's a co-founder of Love Life with me, and Betsy Foster as well, he says this is Whole Foods 3.0. And I said, what do you mean 3.0? What about 2.0? And he says, John, we just skipped that. We went right on to 3.0. And so what it is, we're going to have really healthy restaurants that will also do delivery and pickup. We're going to have things like a wellness center. So you'll have yoga studios and Pilates and a gym, and then you'll have all kinds of wellness therapies from acupuncture to physical therapies to chiropractic, traditional Chinese medicine, Ayurvedic medicine, and then it's going to be medically supervised. So it'll be lifestyle medicine for people. We believe in America. If you look at the healthcare in America right now, it's really sad statistically. 74% of adult Americans are overweight, and 42.5% are obese.
Wow.
And for the first time in our history, average lifespans are not increasing, but they're beginning to decline. And 80% of what we spend on healthcare dollars are basically that are dietary lifestyle diseases that people shouldn't get. No one should die of a heart attack. That's a dietary disease. No one should get type 2 diabetes. That's a dietary disease. Most autoimmune diseases are primarily diet and lifestyle related. And indeed, and not surprise you, most cancers are as well. Not all. There's a genetic component, but the genes load the gun, but we have to, the lifestyle and diet fire it. So doctors do not heal these diseases. They just prescribe drugs which deal with the symptoms. I believe these diseases are preventable and in most cases reversible. And so we aim to do that. We're going to create a place where we can reverse these diseases and help people. Also, I believe, when do most people go see a doctor?
When they need to.
When they're sick. Okay, I don't think that's the right paradigm. I think instead what we should be doing is we should be doing a deep assessment to get a baseline on where our health is, and then work with a team of people led by a doctor who helps us to optimize our health at the highest possible level. We now have so much data collection that we can do through Apple Watches, Oura Rings, all types of things that can track the data of our health and well-being, glucose, continuous glucose monitors, things like that. So we can get the data, we can track people, and we can begin to help people to evolve their health to higher and higher levels. So that's kind of a big picture of what Love Life's going to be doing, and I'm very excited about it. Frankly, I'm very happy to be back. I've left a huge company behind. I left Whole Foods, $22 billion in sales, 105,000 team members, and a massive bureaucracy owned by Amazon, one of the biggest corporations in the world. And so now I'm back in a startup mode, and I'm creative again. I'm having a lot of fun with a close-knit team, and we're every day we're coming up with new exciting ideas. I'm really, really having fun. If there's something more fun than building a business, I haven't discovered it yet. That's the most fun I've had in life, and I hope to die someday still building maybe my third business. We'll see.
Ladies and gentlemen, John Mackey. Thank you so much.